Good evening. It is 5:30 p.m. on Wednesday, January 18th, 2023. And this regular meeting, the Sandpoint City Council is now called to order in council chambers at City Hall, 1123 West Lake Street in Sandpoint, Idaho. For the record, I'm Mayor Shelby Ronstadt presiding. Also present are councilors Kate McAllister, Joel Espiro, Andy Grote, Jason Welker, and Justin Dick. Councilor Deb Rule is not with us this evening. If everyone will please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. Do we have any announcements from council? No? Okay. How about staff?
Just a couple of announcements, Mr. Mayor. Our survey for the comprehensive plan on neighborhoods is and ADUs is a component of that, still available for the next week. So that's up on our website and our Facebook page. And still looking for input on that. P&Z Commission and Amy are looking for input on that survey. And then also we still have applications open for Planning and Zoning Commission. There is one open seat and you have one appointment for you on your agenda tonight. That's a mayor recommendation, but there is a second open seat and he's still doing interviews for that.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And again, so that survey that I would encourage everyone to log on to our website and complete. It just takes a moment. That goes until what, midnight on the 25th, 26th?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
20, one of those.
Next Tuesday, I think.
Okay. All right. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Keely Gray and Caitlin Shook, who are with us this evening. And I have appointed them to the Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Commission, as well as Grant Simmons, who's with us here as well. I've appointed him to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And I also want to recognize Tom Bokowy and Ed Brandenberger, who have been reappointed to the Urban Renewal Board. I'd like to recognize two long-term commission members, Carol Kovalchuk, who served not only on the new Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Commission, but also for many years on the former Arts Commission. So thank you for your service. And also Stephen Bond Garvin, who served as an initial member of the Arts, Culture, and Historic Preservation Commission and was a longtime member of the former Historic Preservation Commission. Those who serve on the city's commissions and boards do so voluntarily and give up their time to do a lot of legwork in researching and fleshing out ideas, considering specific legal regulations, and bringing their expertise and talent to the table, all in the spirit of community service. I can't thank these folks enough for their time, effort, and willingness to serve our community in this way. I believe those who have been appointed will serve the city well, and I would appreciate the council confirmation of these appointments, which are on the consent calendar this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions from the council during consideration of the consent calendar following the public forum.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, you may.
I just want to say that I'm very proud and giving a plug to the chamber that Keely and Caitlin are leadership Sandpoint graduates, and I'm very proud of that, as are two of the council members up here. So thank you for stepping up.
Indeed. And it's always a good sign when those newly appointed show up for their confirmation. So we'll now proceed with the public forum portion of the meeting, which allows the public to address the council and myself regarding items listed on the consent calendar or on any topic not listed on the agenda. To accommodate those who wish to speak on general items during the public forum, as well as those who wish to speak on specific business items on our agenda, a total of 20 minutes will be dedicated to the public forum at the beginning of the meeting. If you would like to speak and did not have an opportunity to do so, we will provide that opportunity by reopening the public hearing at the end of our regular agenda. Those here in chambers who wish to speak will need to complete a sign-up form, which you can find on the front table by the door. Complete it and please hand it to the clerk up in the front right of the room. If you're on Zoom and wish to speak, I will ask for public comment, and then you may raise your hand and you will be called upon to speak. Comments shall not be personally derogatory, nor shall they be personally directed at any individual, organization, or business. Public comment opportunities during meetings are for comments only. Do not direct any questions to council, staff, or myself, and please do not approach the dais. Please note that during public forum, council may not hear or take testimony on any planning and zoning matter that is before the city or is known to be a likely application. Such testimony is allowed only during the public hearing. Issues regarding the performance of city employees constitute matters that must be discussed only in executive session and are not appropriate during the public forum portion of the meeting. Matters that have been previously heard and decided by the council may be determined to be inappropriate for public forum. Citizens may use this time to request that items be placed on a future agenda for further discussion. Those in attendance are not to disrupt this meeting or the business at hand that is being taken up by the council, please. Disruptive behavior includes clapping, disruptive noise, and comments or exclamations from the audience. Each speaker will be allowed 3 minutes. Madam Clerk, has anyone signed up to speak during the public forum portion of the meeting?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Seeing and hearing none, that concludes the public forum portion of the meeting this evening. Next on the agenda is the consent calendar. For the record, the total amount of bills is $1,214,149.28, reflecting $423,241.08 for regular payables and $790,908.20 for payroll. Does council have any questions, or are there any items council wishes to remove from the consent calendar? No. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion that the consent calendar be approved.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? There'll be a roll call vote.
Counselor Welker,
Yes.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor McAllister,
Yes.
Counselor Groot,
Yes.
Counselor Sprow.
Yes. Consent calendar is approved. And again, thank you for those new volunteers and new commission members. Really appreciate your service. Following the review of the draft downtown waterfront design competition manual during last week's meeting, this evening, council will consider approval of the manual and authorization to open the competition and solicit design. I'll now yield the floor to City Administrator Jennifer Stapleton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also have Don Stastny, our competition manager, who's been working on a consulting basis with us on putting this together electronically as well. We did a detailed presentation to council at your last council meeting, so we don't plan tonight to have a full presentation of all of the manual again, but I do want to highlight a couple of areas and questions that have come up during the week. And then I think we were both prepared to stand for any questioning that council may have regarding this process as well. There is our manual, draft manual, and there's some fine-tuned tweaking that we have to do, get signatures in there if we have council approval, and do a final read to make sure we got all of our wording right, all typos got cleaned up, and things again. So again, this is a final draft for consideration with council, and we'll go through with a fine-tooth comb if council approves us moving forward. Let's see here. Sorry, I'm trying to get to something on my screen that has another button in front of it, so I cannot move down the screen at the moment. Okay. A reminder for council and the public is, let's see. Okay, there we go. The objective with the design competition is to move forward the concepts for the city-owned property at the downtown waterfront, as well as City Beach, and to develop a master plan vision for downtown Sandpoint and how it interfaces with the waterfront. It's a best practice for cities to develop a downtown master plan. Because it really sets out what the vision, the community vision is for downtown. We have a variety of existing master plans. As council is aware, our multimodal transportation plan, our arts, culture, historic preservation master plan, our urban forestry master plan recently adopted that speaks to trees in our right of way and coverage that we want with that. We have a parking study that was recently completed. We have a variety of stormwater, a water plan, a wastewater plan. And so the purpose of this master planning effort would be to coalesce all of those individual plans into one master vision for the downtown. Specifically, our arts and culture historic preservation plan speaks to elements of the development of a master plan for downtown, recommending that the city actively participate and become involved in the Main Street America program to develop a vision for the downtown to support vitality in the downtown. What also drives this is we have seen a lot of development occurring, a lot of property changing hands in the downtown, and have heard feedback from the community relative to what that development looks like. And there has been a long history of discussion about the potential creation of districts in the downtown core, such as a historic district. That's also referenced in our arts, culture, historic preservation master plan, potentially really forming a greenery district and having different design standards, having different potentially height standards in different districts. Right now in our zoning, our downtown core is all zoned as a commercial A zone. So it's a one size fits all through the downtown. Through this visioning process, this is an opportunity to look at whether there should be areas of downtown that are treated differently from other areas. So the waterfront area in particular, should that look different than what happens in the central area in the downtown core? Perhaps not. Perhaps it all should look the same. But the purpose of this process is really to bring in design team experts that have experts in stormwater management, which is the reason we purchased the Farman's Landing property, expertise in arts and culture, historic preservation, master planning, economic development, engineering, to lay out their visions after looking at all of our plans and how those come together, and bringing their expertise in those areas for the community to respond to, as well as a jury of technical experts to respond from and provide a technical review. I think one of the misunderstandings with this process and a design competition is the use of the word jury. The jury isn't making a decision on behalf of the community, but they're serving as a group of technical experts who can provide that feedback to the community and to the council ultimately, and determining whether to move a design team forward, whether to accept the master plan as we do our other master plans, and provide that technical expertise to council. Our traditional approach to either master planning in downtown or moving forward our concepts for our own city-owned property, public-owned property in downtown would be to issue an RFQ, go out, find a consultant, a single consultant. Perhaps they have built a broader team that would present the concept moving forward. And we saw that play out with the Farman's Landing concepts, which became the overall downtown waterfront concepts and city beach concepts. The reason that we have moved forward with presenting for council consideration a design competition is, as Don has discussed in previous presentations, it provides us the opportunity with the same dollar amount that we would expend for a single consultant to bring in a variety of design teams and vet concepts against one another, and have a more robust process that involves the public throughout that process, and moving forward to a final team that is working on a final master plan that the community has input in, that the jury has provided technical expertise and vetting in, And the council ultimately makes the decision as to whether to adopt or not, as opposed to an RFP process, again, where we are selecting a single consultant, and that goes through our traditional selection process that really is all internal to City Hall. There isn't a public process involved in that type of a selection. It's a technical procurement process that happens here. So this allows us to consider multiple design teams and pick and choose from what different design teams might bring to the table. In terms of what those teams will need to consider with a design program. My computer just does not want to cooperate with me. It's all of the elements that we have in our existing master plans, and rolling up to again, a unified vision for the downtown. It's considering the history of this community, and there's a lot of discussion even in our competition manual about the history and the context of where we have gotten with our master plans to date. It's recreation, and our recreation and how it interfaces with downtown, particularly along Sand Creek and along the lake along City Beach. Arts and culture, which we have an adopted master plan. It's looking in the historical context to the role and the history of the tribes in our area as well, which we have included in some of our arts and culture pieces, particularly our box wraps. Downtown, and trying to tell some of that history. Water quality, which again is a key component for why we purchased the Farmers Landing property. It was about bank stabilization and stormwater treatment and management. Nature, the beauty, the open space, the ecology of our waterfront and our downtown, and pulling that all together into a single master vision framework. They will also need to consider economic development, and we have some master planning pieces that will inform that process in our arts, culture, and our parks recreation master plans, as well as our recent parking study, as well as the Leland report, which was looking at economic development and housing issues. Movement and access. So again, taking a look at our adopted multimodal transportation plan, and we have specific concepts in that adopted plan for the downtown, and looking at how those fit into the overall framework of the downtown. And we may see some recommendations for some changes in that regard. Resilience of our community through change, ups and downs in the economy, and then ultimately recommendations on implementation steps for that master plan vision for the downtown. Simultaneous to this design competition, we've got our updates to the comprehensive plan. And again, it is envisioned through this process that the results of the design competition and ultimately an adopted master plan vision for the downtown would be incorporated into our comprehensive plan as an appendix. One of the challenges that we find as we're going through our comprehensive planning process is interpretation of the comprehensive plan and what does it mean to people. Our comprehensive plan lays out a vision for the community, but it's words and it doesn't have the associated visuals. The master plan for the downtown gives us the opportunity to lay out visuals through a master planning process for the community to react and respond to, provide input, and again, for a jury to vet the technical aspects of that. By incorporating that into the comprehensive plan, not only do we have the words in the comprehensive plan speaking to the downtown, but we've got the visual that lays out what our vision for the downtown is. As developers are looking at coming in with private projects moving forward, and they say, what does the city want? Not only is it words, it becomes a visual that we can lay out for them. This is what we want. This is what the community envisions in the downtown, and try to get ahead of the community concern that we've been hearing again relative to what private development looks like, how it interfaces in the waterfront. through historically, and we talk about this in the context portion of the document, as the community has done planning, strategic planning for downtown, and adopted various documents throughout the years and implemented various capital projects. An ongoing discussion has occurred over the last 15 or so years about the creation of a historic district, the protection of the open space and the visuals along the waterfront, keeping that historic character of the downtown, and size and scale of buildings has been kind of a constant topic that has come up and that we're hearing through today. Again, through a master planning effort, maybe it's 65 feet throughout the whole downtown. Maybe in different districts that looks differently, but this is an opportunity to lay out the visual for the community to really have a robust discussion around, rather than just words in our comprehensive plan. And not that that's not an important document, but when we see the associated visuals, there's often an opportunity for more dialogue, and we tend to see more participation. And we really can come together in what that shared vision is. Don's done a little bit of refinement from the last meeting, and we talked about this at the last meeting regarding the schedule. Overall, the timeline for the project hasn't changed, but I also want to clarify a couple of things about process. Again, keep in mind that this is a competition manual, and we've tried to, as much as possible, tell the story to the community, to stakeholders in the community, as well as to firms that may be interested in participating in the competition. But the primary audience for this is really a solicitation manual, and it defines a process for selecting a team to do a master plan. So the primary audience for this is potential teams that would participate in the design competition. To clarify again on public process and where the council weighs in stage one, you'll note that we have a technical jury evaluating portfolios of selected teams that they would recommend narrowing down the pool to participate in stage two. To clarify for us how our public process works for this, the jury would be narrowing down selected teams. And by this, what they're doing is really, it's our technical team looking at qualifications of submitting teams and making a recommendation ultimately to council about selection of those teams that would move to stage two. So decision-making points are with the council and not with the jury. It's jury making a recommendation and making a technical recommendation that ultimately goes to council. Similarly, in stage two, where this is moving through and we've got community processes, there's an opportunity, as Don mentioned at the last council meeting, there will be presentations to the public. There will be public workshops, and design teams will be required to make presentations to the public as well as to the council. And they will also be making presentations to the jury, who is assessing the technical components of their presentations. For example, we see a concept for Farman's Landing again, and they are suggesting what not only a design at the use at the ground level, but also what type of treatment we have for stormwater and protection for Sand Creek. Our technical team, our jury, if you will, is really vetting that technical solution and stormwater solution. And is this innovative? Is it state of the art? Is it appropriate? What would be the impacts of implementing that solution? That's the type of technical review that they're doing, so that ultimately, when it comes forward to council to make a decision on narrowing down further a team for stage three, you've got all of that technical input from the jury, as well as the community input through the community process. As discussed also at the last council meeting, when these presentations to the jury occur, when the jury is deliberating, all of these meetings would be open to the public. So we anticipate those occurring here. Council chambers will be open. So if members of the public want to hear jury reviews, jury comments, what was the presentation to the jury, all of those activities will be open to the public. This is intended to be a public process and not a jury that is making a decision on behalf of the community. So just for clarification, in a solicitation world, the role of the jury in that technical review and the use of the term jury is clear to potential design teams that would submit for this, but may not be as clear to the community when they're looking at this and they're not looking at it through the lens of a solicitation. Timeline on this. And the document hasn't gotten any shorter. Uh-oh. Where did I go? Our timeline on our schedule is still with a completion date in late June. And that was a concern by some of the parties that ultimately, as we lay out this vision, like Carousel down at Sand Creek Landing, one of the concerns they had was timeline of this process and impact. So if they're waiting for this to move through and that vision, what does that do with their capital campaign? So we had committed to a timeline that would complete in late June, and we are still on that schedule with this process. Don, do you have any other comments you wanted to make about schedule changes?
We did make a small change in the very beginning. We put another week into the stage one submittals due. Reason for that was the concern brought up by council. Do we have enough time in there to really solicit the kinds of professionals that we want to have in this? So just to give us a little more leeway in that particular area. We've also looked at our mid-course review and believe that the way that we set this up for stage 3, that the mid-course reviews can be done within 1 week and be a singular mid-course review for the teams themselves. So those are the two changes within the overall schedule that we showed about a week ago.
Finally, as mentioned last week, and I will get off of.
I'm sorry, can I
Yeah.
ask a brief question? And I think this is obvious, but it seems like a word choice issue. June 16th, it says final design concept report due. But the other stages, the final, so it refers to stage 2 submittal due, right? Stage 1 submittal due. Would June 16th be the submittal for stage 3 that's due, or what is the design concept report?
The design concept report is something that we produce for you, which includes the submittal of what the stage 3 team comes up with, also the results of the stage 3 workshop. So yes, Ms. Maria, there could be something in there where we have a more specific stage 3 submittals due. I see your point.
Mr. Mayor, presumably isn't the finalist who's made it through to stage 3, their submittal occurred at the end of stage 2. Now they're refining it. Isn't that correct? I mean, that is the design that the jury has selected to be the finalist.
That is correct. That is correct.
So it's the final design concept that's
Right.
Submittal
Okay.
stage at that point.
But it is a refinement of what was selected after 2.
So that, I guess that's what I'm not seeing. I'm not seeing where there's a stage 3 revision due. right? So there's the stage two.
That's right. That is correct. It's assumed in there, but it isn't specific. So we can modify that.
Okay, thank you. And I assume that would fall maybe, somewhere between June 6th and June 16th?
So basically that final design concept report due would be that concept. I think our titles are a little bit off right in there.
Okay.
And Mayor, I think one of the important points that Don made about this in previous discussions, so I just want to emphasize again, is in moving from stage 2 to stage 3 and approaching this visioning process through a competition as opposed through like our standard RFP process with a single consultant, is this gives the opportunity between stage 2 and stage 3 to give feedback that perhaps with 3 teams, there's a component in team 1's design that the community feels reflects the vision, and there's B component in teams 2, and there's C component in team 3. And if team 3 is selected to move forward because overall they best understand and are able to articulate the community vision, but there's elements in the other 2 teams' vision that maybe should replace elements in team 3's or the council would like to see incorporated. There's that opportunity with 3 teams to pull what you like best from each of the teams. And as you move to a finalist, say, we want you to incorporate these elements that other teams presented, which you have not had in your concept to this point, and get that incorporated in their final concept. So it allows for more innovation and creativity, and really looking at a broader range of professionals providing input into a process that you're pulling from multiple teams, multiple professionals to get to that final vision.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Don, maybe a question for you. I think some of the stuff we've been dealing with in terms of council right now, thank you, Jennifer, for the clarification on the jury. I think using the term jury evokes this idea that we're going to be seeing a bunch of facts and executing a decision. I would potentially suggest that the jury is changed to selection committee. I think that would help out a lot of the public. And with that jury, these all look like very capable folks, and I'm sure they're all lovely human beings. But I think we really need to refine, or at least put in the document where all of the public input is going to come in. What part of stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 are we going to have this massive amount of public input? Because I really see that as a positive with this process versus hiring a group of consultants that may or may not be from Sandpoint, right? Which is also what we're going to be doing here, but we have better access to more groups and consulting. So I think the only way to get around this, to kind of make the community whole on this, is to really dial in where the community input comes in at each of these stages and make sure that it is more so than what we would get if we were to do a basic RFP or RFQ with one particular group. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Counselor, I appreciate the comment. One, I think, simple way to look at it at least for those who are familiar with how the city operates and have been through this process before, it essentially, once you get to stage 3, it operates like any other RFP process in terms of public input in our standard process. So the addition, the opportunity for greater public input really comes in with that stage 2, because we're getting that extra round of seeing several different presentations or concepts portrayed. And then we get to respond to each of those. We get to respond to the jury. And, in that process of selecting the stage 3 candidate, they get that additional level of public scrutiny before what would be the the standard process even begins. Does that make sense?
It does. But I think we really need to clearly state this on this process. This is a large undertaking that we're going to be moving forward with potentially one way or another. And I think it needs to be in there. And I would even so much as suggest that city council play some part at the end of stage one, when we see what those teams look like, what their makeup is, and are able to make recommendations to the competition manager as to some of those makeups of those individual teams, and to be able to assist by recommending Sandpoint locals, property owners, business owners, folks that do hold stake that might not be on the stakeholders committee, that we could suggest or recommend to move into the initial teams. Thoughts?
Counselors, anyone want to add or comment on that?
So I could agree with that. And if it fits into that, be able to, we discuss or talk now about special meetings and we'd add more to our calendar. So I hear you. I think that the clarifying jury is important. I didn't get hung up on the term, but I can appreciate others when like, hey, what is this? I was a little surprised because we have such a robust dialogue with open, transparent communication within the community. For us to get hung up on a term, it just, for me, it just shows how hesitant our community is. And I can appreciate that. If can help that and have more conversation in that, now's the time for us that we are committed to having more special meetings if and as necessary to confirm that there is adequate public and council involvement in this. Is that to try to wrap up what we're trying to talk about here?
So.
Mr. Mayor.
May I have a word on this jury
Go ahead,
situation?
Don.
How do I put this? The problem that we have found within competitions, and this is very much prevalent in European competitions, is that government intervention into a competition after the jury has made a recommendation may turn over all the work and everything else that has been done. The term jury carries with it more responsibility than selection committee, because it in fact says that you're going to look at the facts, you're going to look at the presentations, and you're going to make a very informed, collegial, and cooperative decision within the jury and make that recommendation to you, the council. So there's a certain part of this which says you really have to preserve the integrity of the jury as a body. It does not mean that review of their work at any one time by council cannot occur. It also means that the public can view the jury in action, except when they're into deliberation. So they can see both what the jury is dealing with as well as from the competitors themselves. But it also gives a chance for the public to see the complexity of the problem that they're dealing with, that the jury is dealing with. So I really kind of resist changing the name of the jury to the selection committee, but we can go into this and be a lot more clear about where the community interacts. It's in there already, but we probably need to bring it out into a specific list, and also how the council interacts with the process too.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Don. I think Joe wanted to go next.
Justin, I just want to make sure, are you saying on the stages to make it very clear to the community where public input will be
Yes, it is
Thank you.
stated throughout here. There are pieces where we understand that either the technical advisory group will be there or it will come to council at some point. But I think to ease the fear of the public is very clearly state in this document where and when the public is going to get involved at each point in these stages, and as much as we possibly can, because this is such a large undertaking of, I've grappled with this all day in terms of, do we just go and do these one at a time and slowly move through the next 10 to 15 years, picking off one piece at a time and being an ineffective city councilor, right? I mean, what do we hear from the developers all the time? You stop us from development. What do we hear from the public all the time is you're moving too fast and the development is not what we're accustomed to, nor do we want in our community, nor is it within the character of our community. And I think with really, again, we're taking a large bite out right now. This is a leap of faith. I've heard trust the process. There's been a lot of uncertainty. Uncertainty creates panic. And I think the more we can dial in, the more we can get our community to buy into something like this, a very novel approach to how our downtown's going to shape up for the next 20 years, right? We've heard so much from the public that, do we want more $1 million condos on top of commercial building downtown, right? Is that the character of our community right now? Is the Best Western Hotel the character of our community when we have water pouring in through different holes and avenues on the roof and flooded rooms? And does that now become the character of our community as we move forward with this, right? And I think we have this opportunity to look at many different avenues, get many different disciplines and perspectives and technical. And we really started this off with the stormwater management, right? And we need those technical pieces. And regardless of who we hire as an individual consulting firm, we're going to need those technical pieces as well. But we may not get as quality of city community input that we would if we would with this process. But I think we need to clearly state where that community input is going to be and how we're going to manage that. And further in this conversation, we need to talk about deliverables and how we would be successful after this process is done, and where do we go? What do we start working on?
Yeah, appreciate
Is that
that.
clear?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that was a lot. I think that is clear. And I heard Don say that he can certainly pull out those public engagement opportunities and include that in the document so that it's explicit. And does that satisfy your concern there, Justin?
I think I'd like some reasonable explanation of where they would go in this, specifically the process page that we're looking at right here, and dialing those into this flow chart. And so that everybody leaves this room tonight with a very clear understanding of when the community gets to speak. Because one of the things, we may see code recommendations, we may see some redevelopment, historic districts, art districts, new urban renewal districts that come about on this, which I think are all fantastic. And I think in a lot of cases, they're very necessary. But in such a large undertaking, I want to have the community with us at every step that we take with this process here to better inform and guide these teams while still keeping the integrity of the design competition. Because I understand, Don, I understand you've done this a number of times. This is new to us. It is a little nerve-wracking to discuss. You've got property owners, business owners, developers. You've got longtime fourth generation Sandpoint. We're at a very crucial turning point, I think, in our community at this particular time, especially as we redevelop or rethink Sandpoint after basically a year and a half of being shut down and not moving forward with the plans that we had looked at in 2018. And I'm specifically talking about the park plans, the park master plans, and how those move forward. And I tend to think this is an amazing community, and we get so many great people that give so much good input. And I understand the competition and its integrity, but it wouldn't be a Sandpoint process without hearing from our community members.
Got it. It will be taken care of.
And Mr. Mayor,
I
and
understand.
at the, at the previous council meeting, what we talked about, there were those of us on the stakeholder team, I'm looking at out in the audience, that I appreciate you wanting to bring it to the forefront, because that's one of the things that had the biggest discussion is, we want citizen input, and that has to be one of the most important things, because it is our community. It is on the backs of our forefathers and foremothers that this community was built. And so we did mention that. And so I think that's a great call, is pulling it out so that actually the citizens can see when they get to put in their input and when they get to be a part of the process, because it is for all of us. And I think saving, rather than just doing the one-off RFPs like Jennifer had stated, I think this is a great opportunity for all of us to come together and create one vision. And also, I would like to say that please, citizens, give your input when it comes to that time, because really, we ask for input, and most of the time sitting out here are two people. And we are very data driven. And so we listen to you. Those of you who know us, we do listen to you. And we also listen to staff because they're the experts. And so I think that, throughout this, when we look through the entire document, everything is mentioned, right? The bicycle is mentioned. We're talking about bringing it all together and having citizen input. And so I think bringing it out, that's a great suggestion, so that citizens can actually read it and see it.
Thank you.
I would also say, if I may, when I came into Sandpoint and began to try to delve into all the different things you all have done and the various plans that were around in various areas, you guys have done amazing things. No question about it. The pieces, however, seem to lack harmony and balance as far as how they all come together. And I think that in a lot of ways is what will come out of the design competition, is that you will begin to understand maybe what the relationship of those pieces are and what the community would like to see. And like I said, we can make sure that the community input section is more complete and specific about when they will be able to have a chance to look at different elements. Now, in addition to this, what the teams will have is ability to get into a Dropbox with all these various plans into it to see what has been done. And we will make that available to from day one as far as what they may want to look at. So the teams that come together at the end of stage one, hopefully will be have a certain knowledge of what has gone on, what the issues are, and how to go forward. I would also point out that at the beginning of stage two, we have an all-day briefing on site. We bring the teams in and we can present to them program information that we already have. It's possible that there may be additional program information that is imparted to them at that time. But they will get a sense of what the community is like and what the important values are in the community. We have done this in the past, and we find this Meet Your Designers Night and them coming in for a day briefing has been very beneficial to the overall process. So I guess my point is that as the process rolls on and we're able to inform the competitors at different times, there will, in the same way there is community input that can be given them. If there's additional fact information that we want to portray to them, we can get to them to that through the briefing and through the Q&A process.
Great, thanks, Don. Counselor Wilker?
Yeah, thanks, Don. So there's a couple different terms I've heard tonight that I'd like some clarification on. There's public involvement is a term that you've used on, public observation, which is a term that's in the plan itself or in the document. And then there's public input. And there's a big difference between public input and public observation. I think this
Great.
document articulates where there's opportunities for public observation, but I don't see personally enough opportunities for public input. But here's where there will be lots of public input if we don't incorporate it into the process itself. It's on June 21st or whatever that is, when it comes before City Council, and it's been 2 months since there's been an actual opportunity for public input. And this room will be full of people who are angry about what they see. So if we don't design into, or if we don't incorporate into this competition, plenty of opportunities for that jury, most of whom won't likely even be in Sandpoint, unfortunately, to hear public input, then it's all going to get pent up and we're going to hear it on June 20th. So I think we need to clarify, where is public input actually possible? And then right now, I don't see any in stage 3. I see public observation. Stage 3 presentations. The design team will present the updated design concept to the jury, which will be open to the public for observation. So I want to make sure that at every stage, there's opportunities for public input. Before you respond, Don, I have a couple more questions for you. I have a little concern about the makeup of these teams. From what I can tell, at the minimum, there's between 5 and 8 distinct disciplines required, including architecture, urban design and planning, landscape architecture, transportation, sustainable design, and environmental, civil, and structural engineering. But we also desire teams to include artists and historians. So that's about 10 different disciplines. Can you give us an idea of how realistic it is that teams of 8 to 10 experts will form to respond to a design competition for Sandpoint, Idaho? And a follow-up on that, are there any opportunities for local, like ad hoc teams to form? Because the document also says, pardon me here, one moment. Documentation must be provided of up to 5 projects by the team within the past 10 years. It must have a track record of past performance on contracts with public institutions and private industry, including quality of work and compliance with performance standards. And projects should show team members' experience in projects similar in size and complexity. Having local input, but we have so much capacity in this community. We have so many experts. We've been hearing from them all week. People who feel like they're not going to have the opportunity to participate in this competition because we're requiring an incredibly high amount of experience, background, and expertise on projects like this, at least 5. So are we excluding local teams from forming, Don, because we're requiring too much of these teams? And second follow-up, like in past competitions that you've overseen, how large are the teams that form or submit in stage 1 to participate?
That's 14 different questions.
Sorry, Don. The first one was
first of all, let me
input
take
versus observation, and the second one.
let me take the first one, which I think is easier. When they put together this thing on public input, let me be more specific about that, and we can take care of that issue. And I agree with the terminology. We have different terminology in there. The reason being, in the past, that's what we expect the public to do. But we can make that into a much more specific requirement as far as the way it goes. Second of all, I think
Meaning, Don, that those would explicitly be opportunities for public input?
yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes, and we'll put that in the document specifically. What I want to stress in that, however, is that it isn't, as we give input, we have to make sure that we have the protocols in place, which makes it fair and even. So someone's not grabbing somebody on a street corner and say, do this, do that. But the direction is funneled through our communication protocol. So that we would take minutes, say during a public input session. And then those would be codified and sent to all three teams in written form. So we would have to make sure as a part of all this that we take care of that as we go. Second, the issue of of the number of disciplines. I think what we need to do, and I have heard this criticism and been thinking about it. I think what we say is that the teams may include people in these disciplines. The issue of the 5 examples is so that we don't get a complete compendium of someone's work, but we get very specific examples that are selected. Those examples can be either from one of the individuals on the team, or it doesn't necessarily have to be from the team as a whole. The issue of local teams is the local folks need to take the initiative to start forming their teams. And it doesn't mean that a local team has to be all local. Maybe they are the type that might have a local leader or local representation, but they should not be, I don't think a team should be compromised because they can't find the full component that they need locally. And that is something we've found in the past, is that the teams that are formed locally usually stand up very well in a process like this. And that's one of the things that they need to push as far as their response to stage 1, that they have local representation, but they also have a component of folks that are there to assist in the overall production of the concept. Did I get all the questions?
Yeah, you did. Thank you.
Or at least
it
infer
sounds-
them, I think. I think they, like I say, I really feel like if we get this public input thing clarified, and we can go back in and do some wordsmithing as well on the team structure,
Yeah.
we can take care of those concerns.
I like your answers, Don. I'm concerned that the document as it's before us tonight, I mean, as the document is before us right now, it would pretty much preclude any local team from forming that hadn't done 5 projects like this in the past. So I had that term ad hoc in mind, like what if a team of experts wanted to come together and participate in this? Right now, they would the actual this is under eligibility. They would not be eligible right now as it's worded in the form to even apply in stage 1. So I'm leaning towards making the changes that we've discussed tonight before we formally adopt this. That's just something I'm going to put forth for councilors to consider. Even if it means to stay on a timeline, coming back a week from now to adopt it if necessary. But that's something I'd propose tonight if anybody's open to that idea.
Okay, we've got that down. Let's air it all out before we look towards any amendments or anything like that. Sure. Is there anything new that anyone wants to add? If not, I want to come back to something that you said, Justin, and that is at the end of your last comment, I heard you say that you wanted this more clarity on what were the deliverables. Can you elaborate on
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. What are the next? So we finished stage 3 and now we have recommendations, we have concepts, we have public input. What is the next step? What is the next step in terms of how are we providing funds for these specific concepts to go up? How do we choose which concept we start with? Does it become Sand Creek, City Beach, Farming? There's some very low hanging fruit, I think, with all of this that we've been kicking around for 20 years. It's parking and Sand Creek, right? I mean, some of the people that I spoke with today said narrow the scope and do Sand Creek and do the parking that'll have a positive impact where we sit today with our tourism, with our locals. We've done the parking studies. God knows we've done a number of parking studies since since I got here, 2006, right? We've talked about Sand Creek. We have the master plan for the parks. What comes next? What would we expect to see as a community, as a council, as city staff at the outset of this competition? And maybe that's a question for Jennifer and the city staff. Besides Don, and Don, maybe you can chime in from your past experience.
In terms of
Did
what,
you-
and
I'm sorry, go ahead, Jen.
I would expect once we have a master vision and a concept, it's strategizing on what are the priorities, where is the current available funding and funding opportunities, that when we're into capital projects in particular, then figuring out how we phase implementation of those, similar to what you're going to hear tonight relative to the Traverse Park project, where we adopted a concept for Traverse Park, and we are working on putting together all the funding pieces to get that moved forward. Sometimes when we're reliant on outside funding, that kind of drives some of our timelines too, because it's timing of outside dollars. Relative to downtown improvements, and we noted this in the competition manual itself, an opportunity for funding the city waterfront projects, both at City Beach as well as at Sand Creek. And I think I'll set aside the parking garage for just a second and get back to that. But relative to those waterfront concepts, one opportunity we have for funding, and we referenced in the manual, is creation of an urban renewal district. And for those who don't understand urban renewal districts, it's not a new tax. It doesn't create a new tax for anyone in the community. What it does is it takes, for those properties that are included in an urban renewal district, as redevelopment occurs, as improvements to those properties occurs, there is an opportunity to pool that increased tax increment over the base to fund public infrastructure and public projects. So one of our best examples of this is our downtown revitalization efforts, where we've been our Cedar Street and First Street, where we've done phase 1 and phase 2 of downtown revitalization. Those efforts have been funded by a downtown urban renewal district. Our downtown urban renewal district, when you actually look at the contributing properties to that redevelopment, it's actually relatively small. It is our existing downtown urban renewal district is essentially the Seasons condos, and it is primarily then Cachava, the development that's occurred right there on that block, as well as the Columbia Bank building. So those are really your contributors that have been paying for the streets reconstruction. So when we're talking about projects like Sand Creek redevelopment, for example, all of those properties along Sand Creek that will benefit from redevelopment, particularly those along Farman's Landing, they are not in an urban renewal district. So that's an opportunity to look at putting those properties into an urban renewal district where we know we're going to see redevelopment. Currently, one of those, we have a hole in the ground, and we know there's some redevelopment efforts in associated properties who are directly adjacent to the waterfront and are going to benefit by those public improvements. And so it's an opportunity then, as they redevelop, that they are contributing to the funding of those public improvements. Similarly, we have our parks concept currently at City Beach, and the Best Western, which we know we have a new owner there who's looking at a redevelopment of that project, not in an urban renewal district. So as redevelopment occurs, that's an opportunity again for that to be contributing to revitalization efforts in the downtown. Our downtown parking lot is specifically in our current downtown urban renewal district. And planning for the downtown parking lot and looking at feasibility of that, the opportunity for a public-private partnership. That's within the powers of our urban renewal agency, our Sandpoint Urban Renewal Agency. That effort has started just a couple of months ago. So recent parking study, first phase of a parking study informing that. But that group is meeting now. So appraisals of properties, talking at adjacent properties. For example, as we look at redevelopment opportunities there at the city parking lot, it becomes a completely different project if potentially the property where US Bank is currently is part of that project. Now you're talking an entire city block. Those conversations are occurring, and that will be moving forward through a council process. And whether that stays as part of our existing urban renewal district, or we're looking at the pieces to analyze how best to address this moving forward. What is the timeline? Our current urban renewal district expires in 2029. So do you de-annex components, put that in a new urban renewal district that gives us more time for like downtown parking lot, those types of things. But we are moving those projects forward. Urban renewal is a great mechanism for paying for public improvements in a core like this, where your private development that's benefiting from your public improvements is contributing to paying for those public improvements themselves. In addition to that, particularly as we get looking at both downtown waterfront as well as Sand Creek, there's great opportunities for grants as infrastructure funding is coming around. Stormwater opportunity, environmental cleanup becomes a part of these projects as well. So there is an opportunity to leverage grant funding for this and use urban renewal as seed money for that grant funding as well.
Don, did you have anything that you wanted to add in response to Councilor Dick's question?
No, I think well, I guess I would say this. I have stressed that the competition manual is kind of a blueprint or roadmap of how we proceed through. But also realize that within this overall process, there is flexibility at different times to put information out or give potential direction to the teams as they go. So it isn't kind of like signing off on something and say, okay, this is the way it is, and you don't move it during time. There's enough flexibility in the overall process to allow those kinds of things to happen going through. As far as the deliverables at the end, what I would suggest is that at the end of stage 2, you'll have a certain number of ideas that are produced by each team. And it would be, depending on which team was selected to go into stage 3, it would be a matter of taking what they had or what had been seen in others and making sure that there was a specific list of deliverables that are done, that are executed in stage 3, that gives the city the ability to move forward. And I can see that working actually very well.
Councilor Dick, I appreciate the comment and question, because looking through this document, it actually, in my mind, I agree, it isn't really explicit what the deliverables are. And certainly I understand Jennifer's comments that, whatever plan we end up with, the city's going to take that and look at, okay, what's the low hanging fruit here? Yeah. What strategies can we use? What funding is readily available that we can apply? And then it's a process of prioritization, looking at different funding that's available. And ultimately, we just start kind of picking things off, much as we are with the parks plan right now and what's going on at Traverse Park. But I do think that there's, there could be more clarity in this document as far as what that end product is at the end of the whole process, stage 3. Now we have a planning document. What level of planning are we at here? Is this simply a conceptual design? Is this, is this 50% design? Is it, what does this give us that, and maybe, by comparison, we look at let's say the Parks Master Plan, right? Okay, we have a concept for the Parks Master Plan for the downtown waterfront, right? So how does what we end up with at the end of stage 3, how does it compare or contrast to what we already have? And I'm not, I'm not asking us to, rewrite, to go back to recreate the wheel here or anything. I'm just saying that, I think the document maybe deserves simply a statement at the end, another page, another paragraph to explain, what that product is that at the end, that deliverable. And then maybe a few words, Jennifer, to your point, as far as, once we have that deliverable, this is how the city is going to move forward, right? We're going to look at what are our strategies. We look at our strategic plan. Where do we see alignment? We look at the community priorities as they've been outlined through the process. And we look at, at the end of the day, it comes down to, well, what money's out there and is available for any of these projects that we've identified in this plan. So I think that, I agree, I really want to keep us moving forward on schedule, and I would certainly be open to doing whatever we need to do to make sure that everybody feels really comfortable with this document. But I think we can get there. And I do agree that there could be an additional statement describing what the deliverables are at the end of stage 3.
Agreed.
I think when we're talking about deliverables, there's 2 components in terms of deliverables, which we spoke about in the objective. One is the design concepts for the downtown waterfront and city beach. And as we discussed, it was getting us to basically about 30% design. And then beyond that, you're getting into full design. We have schematic concepts, for example, for Farman's Landing and City Beach, but they don't speak to a lot of the technical components that getting us to 30% design would. We're speaking in our Parks and Rec Master Plan at downtown waterfront relative to what kind of happens at the surface level. But again, stormwater treatment, there are elements of it at the surface level, but there are elements of it that are below surface that the concept plan doesn't speak to. So this would be moving those technical components further. The other element that is addressed in the objective is the vision and the master plan for downtown. And the way that moves forward, that isn't necessarily a money involved. That could be looking at downtown and defining districts, again, that historic district to downtown, recommending design standards associated with that, maybe heights. And that's going to have to go through its own process, which becomes a next step. And again, a public process. Mm-hmm. Those are code changes, which are going to have to go through a public hearing process to final adoption. So again, when we're looking at public process and opportunities for input into this, while Don says he can address components of that in the process itself contained in the document, there will be other processes and input opportunities moving forward relative to the master plan and vision, because code changes require those. So kind of like with our comp plan, we get to our vision for the community, but implementation of that vision may be changes to zoning code, changes to design, changes to all kinds of element of our code, which are going to take some time. This being incorporated into the comp plan is the same thing. Another point I want to emphasize too, which Don spoke to a little bit relative to the public input and that, that having to go through the competition manager and ensuring fairness with the teams. I want to emphasize again what I said at the beginning of this presentation relative to this competition. this is a solicitation. So the integrity of the process, like when we're doing any solicitation, an RFP or an RFQ, we're purchasing things. We have to follow standards and manage it, so we're in compliance with legal requirements relative to solicitations. A design competition is a type of solicitation, but we've got solicitation rules that apply to that. Don had mentioned at the last meeting to council that when there's questions that are asked of design teams, again, those have to be posted online. They have to be shared with all design teams. What public group is given access to a design team, and thinking about the fairness and equity of that, that becomes a very important element of this process. And again, Don would be managing as our competition manager, kind of like our regular solicitations. Cheryl is managing as our contracts procurement officer. And it is standard for us in those solicitation processes as well. A design team has a question, they have to submit that in writing. It's got to be posted up on our website for all the design teams to see that are responding to an RFP process, a standard RFP process as well. So we do have to treat this as a solicitation, and it is important that we follow all those standards and go through the competition manager and are fair and equitable to all of the teams. Our jury, there was a question earlier relative to jury and their ability to be here. In designing the jury and requirements for that jury, those jury presentations, jury deliberations are here in Sandpoint. These aren't individuals participating remotely, haven't been here. Those efforts are actually occurring here in town.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
Jennifer, you brought up a really good point in terms of the consistency of this process and selection here. An interesting piece of the puzzle is the carousel, right? We're asking the competition or the teams to design around the carousel, yet the carousel would still need to give input, their own design, and any other information to those teams. How, and maybe this is for you, Don, how does that information come out? We understand the question process is very redacted, open question page on the website where every question gets listed so that all teams have the same access to information. How would we go about when these teams have questions for the carousel, their specific design, so that they may design around them and we keep the integrity of the design competition?
First of all, I would expect that the carousel folk would be giving a presentation during the briefing, stage 2 briefing, because it would be a part of the program information given them. After that briefing, then we would revert to the question and answer protocol. So if there were questions specifically of the carousel team, those would go through us as competition managers. We would get the answer and then we'd send it back to all the teams at the same time.
Thank you.
What design teams would consider, again, with the concept, and you've seen kind of some renderings the carousel has, is looking at, again, the overall design competition for the waterfront, and what is the scale, where is the size, how does that fit in with all of these other elements that are currently in the concept for the downtown waterfront. They would also be given technical information and considering, again, as the survey gets finalized, transfer of property, what are those property lines, what are restrictions associated with the property, and really revetting that as that comes through in the coming months relative to the downtown waterfront concept. So we've got a lot going on, that limited property in the downtown waterfront concept, and we've got, over in that area, non-motorized boat launch, the connectivity with the trail, the connectivity over to City Beach. So where does the carousel fit in that? Where is that space on that property that fits and also accommodates all of those other components of this concept plan And again, getting to next level and starting to really look at what does stormwater treatment look like? This as concept for activities at that location, but didn't get into that depth of really looking at bank stabilization, stormwater management, a lot of those environmental concepts that we expect to be considered through this process.
Thank you.
Council, anything else? Okay. I heard really three concerns that kind of rose to the top from the council here that perhaps still need to be addressed. And that is including an explicit schedule of opportunities for public engagement opportunities in the schedule, and either as a standalone or more explicit within the current schedule and stage 1 through stage 3 layout as it's currently constructed. So I heard that. I heard wordsmithing the eligibility language of the teams to make it more inclusive for local teams to participate. Both of those seem like easy fixes that I think we have understanding here between staff and Dawn that I feel confident that we could just hand that to them and they would take care of it and we could move forward. The third one that may be a little bit more challenging, but maybe I could get there, and that is the piece of on deliverables, and that I think certainly I hear Councillor Dick suggesting, and I think there may be some consensus here that this document could benefit from a deliverables statement at the end or somewhere appropriate in the document that would just make it really crystal clear for everyone what we're getting at the end of stage 3 and what the city is going to do with that, like how we're going to move forward from that point. And I think it could be a couple of simple paragraphs. I'm certainly confident our team can put that together in a way that's amenable to this group, but that's how I hear it. Am I missing anything? Did I get anything wrong?
I agree with all three of those.
Okay. So it seems like we may have consensus here. I'm not sure if we can put it to a vote. But it does, or I'll just say this. Does everyone, is everyone in agreement with those 3 issues with this document?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So we have consensus here. So now what do we want to do about that? Does the council feel comfortable approving this as is and directing staff and Mr. Stastny to make these changes? Or do we want to do a special meeting next week?
Mr. Mayor, I think I would jump in and I would feel much more comfortable, and I apologize for adding another meeting to the schedule. I just think this is too far important for what we're doing in our community. It needs to be vetted. It needs to be on paper. And I would move to have a special meeting next week or sometime between the finish of this meeting and next Wednesday. That we have this back if city staff can, and Dawn can come back with those changes in that amount of time.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay. And it would be helpful to know, is everyone know their schedule well enough to know if they could be here next Wednesday? Is that a possibility?
Might be remote, but
Okay, we think we could do it. Okay. There's a motion on the floor. This will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Welker,
yes.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor McAllister,
Yes.
Counselor Groot,
Yes.
Counselor Sprow.
Yes.
Okay, we will have a special meeting next week and
Mayor?
yeah.
I would ask that council request staff to and our consultant to come back with scheduling of a meeting. Don and I have to get together. He's got a separate designer that puts together the document. So
Okay.
while we would like to move this forward, I don't know that we can get that completed by next Wednesday. That's something we'll have to discuss with.
Okay,
his workloads.
so if the council is amenable and Justin, you made the motion if we can just direct staff to schedule the next meeting at the earliest possible convenience.
So moved and amended, I guess.
Fair enough. Is everyone in agreement with that?
Yes.
Okay, that's a unanimous yes. We're all in support. In a moment. There will be an opportunity for public comments here. So is there anything else that we want to discuss on this? I am going to open this up to public comment. because it's on the agenda. So at this point, I would, I want to open this up to public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone that's signed up to speak on this matter?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Ellie Sussness.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, and thanks for allowing me to speak. I'm Ellie Sussness. It's been almost 50 years that I've called Sandpoint my hometown. And as a longtime resident, as the chair of the Sandpoint Arts, Culture and Historical Preservation Committee, and as a member of the Downtown Waterfront Design Competition Stakeholders Committee, I am here to show support for this competition. After researching the process and the finished projects of Don Stansky's competitions, I am confident that we will have some amazing ideas that come to light that we can implement in our historical downtown and Sand Creek waterfront. And I really appreciate your diligence in making this a successful competition. This entire conversation has been very, very good. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Sessions. Appreciate that.
Rebecca Holland.
Good evening, Council. This is one of my favorite subjects, downtown waterfront. I appreciate all the information that was coming out, and I particularly appreciate the fact that Justin and Jason called so much for public input. There has been in the past public input that really never got to the floor on various things. We have 6 master plans, and all of the findings are supposed to go into this for a unified version of our vision. In particular, the Park and Recreation Master Plan, the number one desire, I want to bring it up, I do all the time, is that the people, anyone that's submitted in the survey, the number one thing we want is connectivity, bike and path connectivity. And that is said over and over again. I read the full document that was you have before you tonight, and I barely saw any bike connectivity touched on it. We have, and I would want to make sure that everybody that was going out in these teams was aware of our Explore Sandpoint bike network that flows right along that area. This is critical. This is something that the people want, and it needs to be addressed. So I wanted to come tonight and bring that up. There's a lot of effort that went into this for parking. And like it's been said, we've talked ourselves blue in the face about parking. But if we can get it out there where more people can bike and feel safe about it, we can get our kids down to City Beach like it used to be, or to the 3 bike trails that we have, we're going to have a lot less cars going through there. I mean, it's a no-brainer. The European countries all design themselves around biking, and we are just not on top of this. So again, I would like to bring that to your attention. That should go out in this plan. That should be in this, a lot more in there, in my opinion.
Rebecca, you have 30 seconds.
Oh, okay, there you go. I think, what else was there? Okay, there's a lot of different things. I don't want to be, I just want to say real quick, discounted because I'm not a city person anymore. I ran a business in this town for 30 years, but I have lived here 48 years, and I've never done much bragging about this, but my father was an architect with a long, strong history with landscaping. That was his emphasis. And had I finished college, that's exactly what I would be. So that's why you see me here. And I appreciate, there's a lot of people that care about these kind of designs going forward. So
Thank you, Ms.
for
Holland.
your
Appreciate that.
time.
Good comments. Madam Clerk?
Katie Cox.
Hi, council members. I'm Katie Cox. Executive Director of Connexu Land Trust, and I had the joy of being on the Stakeholders Committee. And I just want to say a few things about this process. Having been associated with jury competitions before, I am so excited for what Sandpoint is about to take part in, because it will bring ideas forth that none of us right now at this moment can anticipate. And so much creativity and the ability to take all of those plans that Rebecca was just mentioning, all of those plans, and really knit them together. That's what these robust design teams are, that's what they will do, because you have so many disciplines on one team. And I just want to speak to that about the disciplines on the team, because what has happened in the past when I have participated in juried competitions is often local individuals will then team with other larger design firms. And usually the most savvy design firms who want to be a part of this will make sure that they're grabbing local architects, local landscape architects to build their team so that they have local representation. So when you see that, you know that you have a savvy design firm that really knows the importance of that local commentary. And I would just say that if anybody local wants to be a part of this, then I would encourage them also to look to probably some of their peers in their affiliated networks to pull together teams. The most important thing here, I think, for citizens is if you know people who are in design professions or the historians or the artists, forward them this manual. And that's the way we're going to get an amazing competition. The most number of teams adding to this will make it a better competition all around. And I would encourage, just like we talked about in the stakeholders, I also encourage that local commentary and getting that as much into this competition as possible, and so that it is those local voices that the teams hear from. And so, as Justin was saying, I think this is an amazing opportunity for our city, and I am so excited. I don't know if you guys know this, but I mean, you can look at things like the Sydney Opera House or Paris's Center Pompidou, and those came about through jury design competitions. And so it does bring the best of the best, rather than just, like Jennifer said, one RFP, one team, one vision. You're going to get so many different visions and be able to pull from each of them to make an amazing master plan for downtown. So I'm really excited. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Cox. Appreciate that. Madam Clerk?
Joe Pettifari.
Mr. Pettifari, do you want to come to the podium? Thank you. The limelight is yours.
Well, I don't want it. My name's Joe Pettifari. Thank you, Council, for allowing us to speak. Two issues. First of all, Justin, thank you for articulating it very specifically, that what gets accepted ultimately has to be clear by the public. So even the lowest denominator understands what is being achieved and what's going to be accomplished. That's the problem with many plans. It's good to develop things on paper, but how is it going to be carried out? The first thing I'd like to say is, if there's any way to weight the involvement by local labor and professionals, we should consider that in some format. Ms. Cox had some great ideas, but how do you put it legally? I'm sure there's question, but I know the government provides strongly weighted averages for the types of groups of people that they want to be considered. Don, I'm not quite sure how the jurors are going to ultimately weigh the final three competitors, but somehow our money that is being invested in the community should go to the community members. That's the first thing. Second thing is, Justin, you brought up the aspect of, do we take all these plans that have been developed and lump them together and attack them in some process? And I don't see that personally after 70+ years of being achievable by a town of 10,000 people or less. I tend to embrace the, let's take one project at a time and get it accomplished. I'll give you an example. The stormwater facility plan.
Joe, you have
Is-
30 seconds.
Pardon me?
30 seconds.
Okay, thank you.
We have one.
The stormwater facility plan is a large global plan. But the last storm we had multiple building owners between Cedar Street and Main Street in the alleyway, chipping up ice and removing dam blocking because the stormwater off the buildings was building up and flooding the
That is 3
First
minutes.
Avenue. Flooding the First Avenue buildings. Doesn't take much. Just look at a plan, allocate an underground pipe.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Pettiffery. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We have no one else signed up.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to comment on this matter? Okay, if you can please hand that to the clerk up front. And once you step to the podium, you have 3 minutes. Thank you. And of course, please start with your name and tell us whether or not you reside in the city. Thank you.
Good evening.
Your name, sir?
George Garrig. I live in Bonner County, just north of Sandpoint.
Thank you.
I'm concerned that both in the Sandpoint and the Bonner County planning process, that biodiversity is not being taken into account. I see that you have a number of plans. I don't see a conservation plan. I don't see that Sandpoint, which is the major urban area in the county and is really responsible for educating people about broader issues, that anything about a biodiversity index is even in the works. I understand that connectivity is really important, and that, property rights and the rights to have access to public land is important. But I think that you're missing an opportunity to educate people about the responsibilities that we have to live on the land, to expand on the land in a way that doesn't wreck this ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate those comments. Is there anyone else that would like to comment on this matter? And Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up online?
If there's anyone online who would like to speak, you may raise your hand now, please. No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, everyone, for your comments. Just to reiterate, so we will be, the staff will be posting the next continuation of this decision. So we expect to see that sometime soon. All right, next item on the agenda is the Travers Park improvement.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I
John.
just wanted to thank the council for their thoughtful review and comments, and we will take care of it, and we'll try to be back within a week.
Thank you for that, Don. Appreciate that. And I'm only sorry that we didn't get those to you a week earlier. Well, better luck next time. Sometimes it takes a while to digest these things. Okay, so the next item on the agenda, following an introduction during the December 21st, 2022 council meeting, city staff now seeks authorization to submit an application for a land water conservation fund grant in support of the Travers Park Sports Facilities Improvement Project. I'll now yield the floor to Parks Planning and Development Manager, Maeve Nevins Laptar. Thanks, Maeve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. I also want to thank members of the audience that are here tonight to speak or participate on behalf of the Traverse Park. It's a full room, and thank you all for coming out. I'm very excited tonight to talk to you about the Traverse Park Master Plan update. As we've talked extensively about the Park Master Plan, we've been focusing on Traverse Park internally on the staff side. And as you know, we have the Phase 1 development project, which is the tennis court pickleball facility that's in the works. We will not be talking about that tonight. That is still in the works, and we will be focusing on the next steps, which is the development of what we're calling the Phase 2 and future phase improvements. In order to talk about those with any sort of accuracy, we have to talk about the public input that we had. And as you know, we've had several years of input on the Park Master Plan. There was over 2 years of public input for that plan. And then just a few weeks ago, we held a public open house meeting here at City Hall to talk about this specific phase of the project. We also conducted a recent survey. This is, of course, in addition to the multiple public outreach events and surveys that have been conducted over the last several years in relationship to the Park and Rec Master Plan. The key findings from the most recent public outreach specific to Traverse Park facilities include the community is very interested in multi-use fields, not single-use specific. And that's in alignment with what we've been hearing all along. More restrooms, who can't deny we need a good bathroom when we need it. Lighting, of course, and specifically lighting with reduced impacts to the neighborhood residents. We value our dark sky, and certainly neighbors in that area of Traverse Park do not want to see lights glaring into their windows. Pathway improvements. People of all abilities use that community park system, specifically the trail system that's already in place. It's an existing, it has an existing 8-foot wide asphalt pathway that circumnavigates the park system. However, it is not designed for multi-use. A typical multi-use is 10 to 12 feet. And so that not only is it not designed for multi-use, it is also not currently compliant to ADA standards. It is full of disrepair. And that has been something that has been brought up repeatedly in our outreach. The request for an upgraded modern playground. We do have a playground that is there. And at the time that it was installed, it was considered ADA barrier-free or inclusive play. And that was the standard at the time. It is now quite aged. However, we've been looking at the equipment, and we do believe that we can reuse some of the equipment. And in the Park Master Plan, it was identified that Traverse Park would receive an upgraded playground that would be fully barrier-free, inclusive, as well as a splash pad. And we've been hearing specifically from community members who are looking for play areas for all ages, particularly the toddlers. So we have we can deduct from COVID that there is going to be an influx of children, if you haven't heard, in the post-COVID era. So it is safe to say that providing for all age youth from toddler all the way up to teen is something that is going to be of greater need. We have, of course, heard from the bikers and the skate community. The bikers particularly would like to see the master plan components that were identified, such as the pump track and the skills course improved. And I will be talking about the skills park improvements later on in this presentation. We also heard about the value of the wildlife and the environmental impacts to the park. Several neighbors have pointed out to us the strength of the ecology of the site, from the waterways and the bird corridors to the wildlife that pass through there, and preserving that, and if not just preserving, but enhancing that corridor. And then finally, we all are familiar everywhere with what happens when there's an event and the parking overflow into the neighborhood, and that is ongoing. And we are currently underserving the uses for that park and the sports complex at large. So as you know, I've been working with my consultant, Mike Terrell, Landscape Architects, and Mike is on the line tonight if we have any questions for him, as well as the Barry Dunn team. And tonight we have Barry Dunn if we need him as well. I'm just going to give the presentation, and then if we have technical questions and bring them on board. This is the master plan graphic that was adopted in the 2020 Park and Rec Master Plan. As the implementer for the city's park department, it's my job to take this plan and flush it through the public process and revet all of the priorities to make sure that the priorities that were established at the time of the adoption are still the priorities. It's also my job to align the priorities with funding and to strategically implement the plan. So in doing so, I've been working with my consultants to develop this refined version. It's essentially the same elements that were identified in the master plan. It's sort of, I would call it the 2.0 version. And what you see are in this graphic here is a refinement of the traverse parcels. And this is inclusive of the new building footprint for phase 1. And you can see where my cursor is. That would be the footprint. That's the base plan currently, with a plaza at the front of it. And that footprint is inclusive of a 4 tennis court, multi-striped with 16 pickleball facility. And then there would be a front entrance with 6 bathrooms, 3 bathrooms that would be accessible from the outdoors and 3 to the inside. Multi-use room that has an indoor-outdoor facility that open up to the Gateway Plaza. The Gateway Plaza and the connectivity to Pine Street would all be inclusive of this development. And then the skate park expansion per the park master plan, it was identified that the skate park would essentially triple in size. We currently have 5,000 feet and the park master plan calls for a full build out of about 18,000 feet. We have enough funding in hand to double the size of the existing skate park in the phase 1. So what we are looking at here for moving forward is a phased approach where we would be applying for the Land Water Conservation Grant, which is a pretty significant grant. It's the largest one that the state administers. It is a federal grant that gets passed through the state parks division. And the way that grant works is it's a 50% matching grant. So in order for us to apply for it, we need to have the money in hand. Now that match can be leveraged in a number of different ways. We can utilize some of our design fees. We can get creative with how we articulate that match. But right now, in order to bite off a sizable chunk that we think we can afford the match for, we had to get creative with how we were going to strategically move forward. And this is going to sound like a not very sexy project. However, a parking lot is where we're headed. So this is going to be an upgraded parking lot renovation split into 2 phases and the new playground. The phase 1 playground, as I'm lovingly referring to it, is essentially the existing footprint of the current parking lot. That parking lot would serve to upgrade the drainage of the existing site, provide electrical, which we are going to need to run electric anyway to the new building. It would provide electrical to the park. And so it would basically provide the utilities coming through, new water and sewer and all of the utilities would come through there. In addition, it would include that circulation connectivity path on the east side and make it so it's safer to come when you come into the park from West Pine Street and you're headed north with the skate park to the east. So that would be a concrete pathway. And then the skate park, and then the playground expansion would be included in that. We're estimating in the $800,000 range for the match. And again, we have to really refine our pencils and our budget before we commit to any one budget item. But that would essentially result in a little over 1.2 million in infrastructure improvements. We do envision bridging a 3-year fiscal cycle to achieve this. But in doing this, we couldn't just look at that one little phase. You can't just design in a silo. And that's what you're hearing about downtown. I couldn't just design the one little parking lot or one ball field or one piece of this park without looking strategically at the entire Traverse Park and thinking about how we would get everything done. And so what you see on the left is a list of all the other amenities that we're looking at and taking to the next design level, meaning concept design 2.0. We don't have a survey for all of the park. We only have a survey for the eastern portion of phase 1 and some of the phase 1 parking lot area and the skate park. So keep that in mind when you see some of these designs, but we have conducted enough public input and done enough site analysis to know that this is pretty close to where we're going to land and pretty close to where the budget's going to land. And it is inclusive, as you can see, of all the elements that we've been talking about all along. The phase 2 parking lot, this is a blow up enlargement of what we would be getting with this LWCF grant phase. It would be this parking lot here, the access, it's everything that's outlined in orange. And then we're calling this playground expansion or renovation, we're calling it the Sandpoint Stories. And where we are in that feature is we've started our design. We've been able to design this through the process with phase 1. And this has a robust story, and you can see this next one where we combined the donor, the James E. Russell family's history and their relationship with the Patrick McManus books. And Patrick McManus, as you know, is a local author. And we also combined the theming of the art sculptures that were donated in phase 1 with the playground to create this themed Into the Woods character, where we would have taken the literal book that Patrick McManus wrote about the bear in the attic, and we could use our existing playground equipment and repurpose it to create a bear in the attic's play structure. And then we would also take the theming of the streams and the ecology and bringing that stream and elevating it through the entire site so that the whole site is integrated with the splash pad and this log theme and this very naturalistic feeling that is that Into the Woods and the Sandpoint character that is reflective of the vernacular of our community. So that's a little bit what you see. I'm going to go back to the inclusive playground budget just so you can see. Again, this cost estimating is specific for the grant purposes. So we do have contingencies built into this because we don't quite know, are we going to build this year? Are we going to build in the next 2 years? And because of that, we wanted to make sure that we were very conservative in our estimates. It includes funding for everything from the architectural design to the survey, the site work, the drainage, the play elements. And so the 500,000 plus or minus is the estimate for the playground right now.
Can I pause you for just a
Sure.
moment?
Do you wanna pause?
Does that include an interactive water feature?
We haven't designed to the level to know exactly what that will get us. The idea is that we would at least get play equipment and that there would be a splash pad or interactive water element within this playground. But at this time, we don't know exactly what those site elements would be. But we know that we could walk away with a pretty substantial playground.
But, okay, so, but you could accommodate an interactive water feature with that budget, you're confident?
We're not confident that we can, no. The playground with a splash pad could vary, and I can, Mike is on the phone, and Mike, if you could jump in, Mike Terrell, landscape architect, he can speak to that cost a little bit more. For the purposes of the grant, Mike did recommend that we don't include the splash pad in this because if the splash pad and the water feature elements come in substantially higher, we want to make sure that we are able to deliver what we say we can deliver, and we can phase that in as a separate phase. So with that, Mike, if you're out there.
Yes, thank you, Maeve. What we're doing with this first phase is replacing the existing playground, basically square foot per square foot, and leaving an opportunity for the splash pad to be built as the next phase. And as we're really very early in the design process, and exceptionally early, and so there's a lot of room for massaging the design and potentially getting to a point where we're meeting all the needs of the community and have some room to actually do the splash pad. But right now, we're trying to be very conservative based upon what we know about construction costs and and getting us to a point where we can build a playground and then leave room and a placeholder for the splash pad. If that comes either a later phase or we can fund it during this process too.
Thank you.
Is that, did you have anything?
Yeah, I think so. So and I'll let you finish. Sorry.
Oh, that's it for the playground part. I wanted to dive into the parking lot next. Do you want to?
Go for
Is
it.
that okay if I dive into that? Okay, so then the phase 2 renovated parking lot, you can see everything that it includes. It's pretty substantial renovation. It's essentially a complete makeover of the parking lot. The playground the parking lot that we currently have, number one, is it's not built properly. The sub-base material is completely disintegrated and it's failing. And that's also a reminder that this entire park is a historical dump. And it was arguably not capped off properly. And that's why we're seeing a lot of the undulations throughout the park, because it's disintegrating underneath. The subsurface is failing is what that means. So we have done our geotechnical analysis of this, and it does show us that the drainage is poor, the subbase is failing. You can see that it's indicative of the cracking types that we have. The asphalt is over 20 years old. Asphalt should be replaced every 20 years, typically, as you can tell around the rest of the town. There isn't any electrical, though we don't have any lighting out there. Let's see here, Mike, am I thinking of anything else, missing anything else? We don't have a lot of the normal stuff that you have in a parking lot. So as you can see, it's expensive. It is a knee jerker. It makes me a little queasy presenting this to you, because in the old days, we could bust out a parking lot for a couple $100,000. But keep in mind, we are being conservative. We have a 25% contingency in here. We are trying to think for the worst, all case scenarios, and that's what we will ask for the funding. That is at the advice of our state grant administrator, to really put everything in that you think you could possibly need, because you can't ask for it later. So that was the direction. Do I think we could get it done for less? Yes, I do. Is that the hope? Is that the intent? Yes, of course it is the idea that hopefully we can build more and we can expand our footprint. Yes, of course. So that's that. So here's just the summary of the grant. And so tonight in front of you, you have a resolution request to support the city in pursuing the LWCF Land Water Conservation Fund 2023 grant application. The grant is due January 27th. This is just the summary of it. You can see where we are. We don't know the exact match amount yet. And Jennifer, myself, and our finance director will be working on refining this exact amount. I do not anticipate that it would exceed the 800,000 mark. Hopefully we'll get it down to closer to 500,000, but we need to massage those numbers and make sure that we are accurate in our ask, as well as accurate in what we can match.
Thank you for that presentation. That was great. And have we budgeted that $866,000, and where would that come from?
We're not quite at 866,000 yet, but we intend to bridge the 3 fiscal years, 2023, 24, and 25, as well as pursue additional grants and donations. Jennifer, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, that's the meeting that Maeve was referring, sitting down with Sarah, but we would, again, this project wouldn't occur for a few years. It's a process that has to go through. So
I see.
Bridging capital funds that
Got
we
it.
have through parks.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Council, any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So the parking lot is just to redo the one that's existing, right?
Correct.
So
and
is there
upgrade the
any future
infrastructure.
plans to expand the parking lot? Because I know living in, I don't live in that neighborhood, but I know people who do. And, like with the Ponderay Cup, people park there. And so that's the only thing that I'm thinking about too, that it would be really annoying if I lived there and there was people always parking in front. You understand it, but yeah.
Absolutely. So the big vision, and that's where we had to plan everything out, was to expand the entire footprint of of the parking lot. And so you can see in this diagram here to the left-hand side, that is the complete build out. So that's what this would look like with a complete build out. Tentatively, we would have 2 softball fields and 1 baseball field overlaid with soccer. So they'd be multi-use. We would have additional bathrooms in the center of the park and another plaza area. There would be a sledding hill. A complete build out of the playground would include the full playground with a splash pad that would flow through. And so the splash pad would it would flow through to the Gateway Plaza area. The maintenance building that is currently on the park exists over here. The maintenance building does not have plumbing to it, so they can't wash their hands. It's not up to current standards. That would get relocated as well as plumbed out with the facilities for that. There's a pump house building currently located over here. We would condense that and combine it with the maintenance building. There would be storage facilities for the recreation materials. In addition, what you're not seeing really brightly loud and clear, but since we have a lot of bikers in the audience, the skate park would be fully realized in its full capacity in this footprint here that's in purple. To the north would be the bike skills course, and that's where my cursor is right there. That's just located just north to the tennis courts. The existing tennis courts would be completely renovated. They currently have a bird bath in the middle that the geotech report said that there's a 10-foot deep organic situation, which means it needs to be dug out 10 feet, and there's a 100-foot lateral crack. So those are not currently safe. In addition, the bikers also in the master plan, they've identified that they would like a hardened surface or asphalt or concrete surface pump track. And that has been now fit into the plan at a concept level. So all of these other elements, we are in the process with Mike. Part of his task and his team's task is to give us costs for all of this. We are into the millions to see the full build out of this park. Again, I remind you all that this was a historical dump, and that's part of why we're seeing failures throughout. So it's not a simple fix, and we can no longer just keep putting topsoil on top of our fields and regrading it. That's a waste of money. And so we actually have to dig it out, rebuild it, redrain it. And in the master plan, it has identified all of these priorities numerous times. As well as lighting. If we added lighting, we'd be able to extend the playtime, particularly for adults, because what we've heard from the public was that the children need the most time on the fields, but they all have to go to bed. And so the adults really could play in those evening hours if we could add lights. So the full build out, I don't know that Mike's quite ready to say the number, but it is in the millions. And part of his task as this initial assignment was to look at the entire Traverse Park so that I could strategically plan and pursue additional funding.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Maeve, just want to thank you and say you're doing a great job on this project. And notably in the last public gathering here, maybe 3 weeks ago, coming out of that, I was hearing a lot of feedback from community members. And actually, if you could put just that overview graphic back up, it's so much better than what we saw 3 weeks ago, because it actually answers a lot of the concerns that I heard from the community. People said no more soccer in Traverse Park. You've now shown that there's room for at least 2 soccer fields here in the outfields of those softball fields. And of course, I also hear and I understand that it's a shame that we have to, pave over more of this park. But on the other hand, I hear just as many people complaining about the clogged streets on Lincoln, especially, and how that is untenable when we host these big tournaments. And those big tournaments are a huge part of our economy, and they're a huge resource for our youth, and we need to be able to keep doing those. So this plan, although it's not, perhaps it doesn't meet everybody's perfect vision, it does a really good job of balancing those competing needs and wants in our community. So just in the last 2-3 weeks, what you've shown, the fact that an accessible playground is still here, I would urge you and the city staff to look for as many ways as possible to reuse some of the structures that we do have. That is a beloved play structure. My kid grew up playing on that, and if we, as much of that as we could recycle in this new playground, please try to do that. It would save us money, and it's actually a really great structure that it would be great to if not there, at least try to find another place for it in the city.
Yes, we absolutely intend to do that.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I just want to thank you for the work that's gone into this in the last 3 weeks. It's like it's come so far in just a few weeks. So good job.
And thank you to the team, Mike
Yeah.
Terrell and Stacy on his team. Okay, so
Dave, do you have a count on the number of parking spots and the proposed future number of parking spots?
I do.
I do.
Great, thanks, Mike.
So the current number of parking spots in the park is 85. Is 147 is existing, and we're going to increase that by 121. So what you're seeing on this plan is 268 cars. So, and it's a bigger parking lot than was on the 2020 master plan by about 38 cars. So we've slotted in a few more parking spaces in this version of the master plan as well.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm
Appreciate that.
trying to blow it up for you.
Yeah, I see
There
it
you
now.
go.
Thanks. Yeah, that helps a lot. Any further questions, council?
Not questions. Maybe I would like to echo councilperson's good job. What you are tasked with, that holding all the volume of people's talk and their wish lists and become demands.
Mm.
So I appreciate your patience and your compassion to listen, as well as the parking lot is not the most attractive thing to do first. However, if there would have been criticism leveled one way or the other. Could have built all these structures, and then people have concerns about where am I going to park? I can't even enjoy this. Okay. You are putting the thing first, because it's going to get noticed. And then as they show up, oh, wow, this is really, we can still play here, and we can park here, and we can have tournaments here, and we can continue to progress going forward. And so good job with this, as well as controlling the volume level of the conversations that are being had.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I would like to point out the phasing. Tentatively, we are looking at a 2024 project of the parking lot and the playground, and it would coincide with the building. So the other thing is that when that building gets built, you're going to have construction traffic out there, and it's going to tear it up even more. In addition, we have to run the utilities. So then you're going to have a giant swath of patched worked asphalt in. And so it's going to, if everything aligns with the funding, we don't have it yet. So let's just continue to pray on this one. But if all the funding aligns, we will see simultaneous construction phasing, and it will all work out over the next couple of years. That's the plan. And then Jennifer, we're strategizing other grants and thinking about how we can continue that. So hopefully we will get this first phase done with the parking lot at the same time. We'll move right into the next phase of the parking and the fields. What is important to point out with this, we will not be impacting our phase 1 parking. We will not be impacting any of the field play, which is important because we couldn't build the parking lot without the full parking lot without interrupting the fields. So you can kind of see it's a ripple effect of improvements. And so we have to be very sensitive to all of our users that when we come on board, we want the money for the fields and the second parking lot phase all at the same time, so that we can get in and get out and don't disrupt play. It's very important that we don't do that. So we're very strategic about that. So that's the plan. Now we just need to get those grants.
Thank you for that presentation. That was wonderful and nice work on this.
Okay, so there's a resolution.
Are you still going?
No, I'm just gonna,
Okay, you're powering down.
moving on. There's still more, the next one, sorry.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this matter, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Paxton Key.
I think that's.
Next
Item 7C. Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna
Mr. Mayor,
pause.
Yeah.
For item 7B,
Yes.
I'm going to say Martin Andrews.
Martin Andrews, are you
Oh,
here?
that. I think he's also 7C.
Okay,
He left.
he left, okay.
7C, okay. Rebecca Holland.
Hi there, Rebecca Holland. The whole concept of redoing so much is something that so many in the community are not liking hearing. Redoing the playground equipment, which I'm hearing is quite aged, but I know it's not. I did a lot of work out in that park and I can recall when it went in. It's in good shape. It's and it's well used and well liked. Redoing things and, you know, as interesting as some of those concepts are, this is just very expensive. So we need to be more practical. Yeah, the thing that's been held out in front of everyone's face like a little carrot is the splash pad. That should be figure that space out in there. But the rest seems to be fine. I think the and I know that the concern, I came to the hearing or the open house, and there were a lot of people there that are concerned with like that whole building going up next to their property and the lights and the batting cage and all those kind of things. And most of those little sticky tabs that were on there were asking to have involvement in the design. Those people in the community want to talk about that. And many feel too that the whole the whole parking lot thing is kind of overdone. To expand to 268, again, there's only a certain time, different tournaments where it really fills out like that. You're taking some of the best property, the best open space, and that's what a park is supposed to be for, and getting designated into a parking lot. This isn't going into it, but where the building is going, wants to be put, that hasn't gone through any public input. And there again, that is when it was first, this whole thing was rolled out to us. It was the concept that it was going to be over the existing tennis courts is what I thought was drawn that night, the first proposals. And now we're going into this other thing that's taken out the playground equipment. And so, you know, these are all fun designs, but I think it's quite overdone, quite expensive. We're looking at what,
Rebecca, you have
over
30
$1
seconds.
million? Over $1 million. So we need to think about that and I think roll some of this back. And I would say something about the pump track, but I'm glad to see it's happening. Those are the kind of things the town needs, and they're not that expensive to do.
Thank you, Ms. Holland. Appreciate those comments. Madam Clerk?
No one else signed up for this item, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
I'll be stepping down for this item because it is a project that I'm involved in outside of
Okay.
council.
Thank
So
you.
I'll take a seat in the audience.
Yeah, appreciate that. Okay. I want to entertain a motion to approve the resolution authorizing a land water conservation fund grant application for the Traverse Park Sports Facilities Improvement Project. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? I want to say a few words. I can certainly understand the public frustration around the idea of the city spending $1.8 million, $1.9 million, $1.8 million roughly on a parking lot that we already have and a playground that we already have. And so in that respect, Ms. Holland, I take your comments to heart. At the same time, and I will also add that I was also under the impression that this included a splash pad. So that concerns me, that it feels like, from the public's perspective, I can see how it feels like we're spending $1.7 million and not getting anything different than what we have. I mean, it looks prettier, it looks nicer, it looks newer, but it's what we already have, right? And I can understand that concern. That said, I also understand the realities of the terrain that we're working with there. this site is an old dump site. For those that haven't been getting the message, it's been discussed a little bit in these chambers, but I know that doesn't always make it through. So that means that we have, as was well explained by Ms. Nevins Laftar, we have a failing substructure throughout the entire park, and we're never going to be able to have a parking lot that can, be properly maintained unless we fix that substructure. Same with the fields. And it's also incidentally why the structure, the indoor structure, was located where it was, because that's the most stable footing that we could find on the site. So there are some real fundamental challenges here. That it's the unfortunate situation that at some point we have to just take that uncomfortable step and deal with that subsurface, and that's what this project is beginning to do. So it's a difficult decision, but I think ultimately it's a necessary one if we're to get where we want to get with this vision. And I think this is a bold vision. I think it's quite an aspiration for this community. And I think it does fairly reflect the values and the aspirations around recreation that this community has demonstrated through the Parks and Rec master plan process, as well as through the other public processes that have gotten us this far. So after saying that, I can say my conscience is at ease. I hope yours is as well. And we have a vote and a second on the floor. This will be a roll call vote, unless there's any further discussion. Okay.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor Groot,
Yes.
Counselor McAllister,
Yes.
Counselor Sproul.
Yes.
And I say yes as well. I can vote on that one.
Motion passes. Okay. We'll go ahead and move on. Local bicycling group, Ponderay Peddlers, or POP as they're known, are seeking financial assistance in the form of multiple grants to support a public-private partnership with the city for renovation of the existing Travers Bike Skills course, and are requesting a letter of support from the city. I will now yield the floor to Parks and Planning Development Manager, Maeve Nevins Laftar. Thanks, Maeve.
Thank you again. Okay, so rolling into the next topic of Travers is how do we tackle deferred maintenance, or just how do we tackle something that was never designed in the first place, roguely popped up by community members, has significant drainage problems, is not ADA accessible, is not accessible by anyone with a mobility device, doesn't actually serve anyone of the toddler age beyond to a standard of a certified playground level. How do we tackle that deferred maintenance? This project that you're looking at is the Travers Bike Skills course renovation. We are attempting to move forward with the very first public-private partnership in city limits. We've done this in the watershed successfully with the Ponderay Peddlers. And last year we have a model of doing that. And what we're looking at here is the existing bike skills course that was, it was built many, many years ago, and it is not currently safe. It's not currently up to any standards. It can't be used to the level that it should be used, and it's not properly serving the community. So the model that we are looking at is where the Ponderay Peddlers have offered to fundraise, write grants, run their own fundraising. They've offered to design through their fundraising efforts to pay for the design, and they've offered to pay for the construction of this. And then when they're done, it will get turned over to us. In exchange, we will get a brand new asset, park asset that will be safe for all users, all bikers, all abilities. I'm going to let Tyler Key, the new president of the Ponderay Peddlers, tell you more about the scope of this project. This project was identified in the 2020 Park Master Plan. You can see the master plan on the right-hand side of the screen. I think that this is a small enough project that from my workload perspective, I know everyone's concerned about my workload, as am I. This is a project that I will already be working out there with the other projects going on, I will be able to easily oversee this construction project and manage it. I'm not concerned about that. And we will be coming back to you in a couple of weeks with the refined scope and the exact agreement and what that looks like. But for today, we're here to introduce the project and ask for a resolution of support to allow the Pend Oreille Peddlers to go ahead and fundraise for this small renovation project. If this is a successful model, I hope to utilize this type of a model for other park improvement projects. I don't know that I have a playground group, but I've had playground groups in the past who would work with me on renovating existing playgrounds. They can do all kinds of stuff from a volunteer effort. If this works well and we like this, we can use it to leverage youth groups and volunteer groups. The Pend Oreille Peddlers have, as you can see, a robust community support of, I guess, what, 1,700 people. If you've ever been to their events, they're the place to be during the summer. They're quite fun. They make you work really hard for a couple hours and they often feed you. There's people of all ages and all abilities. It's very inclusive of a community. This will be a great opportunity for them to shine and to show us what they can do and how they operate. So for those of you that don't get to go up in the watershed or up in Syringa Trails or Pine Street to see how they operate, we're going to be on display right dead smack in the center of town for the model of public-private partnership to be on display and to be experienced. And I encourage everyone to experience this. In addition, since I've been here, I've been participating in bike and connectivity projects. I have volunteered, not as an employee, I've volunteered with the Chafe. I was part of the family fund ride, as many of you were, council members. And that whole idea was to raise awareness of families getting out on the trails, families utilizing bikes. I've also volunteered with the peddlers. I've been out there and integrated with them. They've welcomed me into the community, so I feel comfortable that they know how to use tools. They sign waivers, they give safety talks, they wear safety equipment. So I haven't been able to experience that with other user groups yet, but I imagine that the model that they're using is one that I feel comfortable from in my professional experience, in my over 25 years of working in this type of work. I feel that they have proven themselves to me up in the watershed and up in other areas of town. And I feel comfortable in recommending this with wholeheartedness, that this is a good project to move forward with. So you hear my passion. There's a third reason that I care about this more than anything in the world. When I first came here last spring, I was approached by Erin Billings with the school district. Erin is the person that is on the boots on the ground, teaching kids the first very elementary skills on how to ride a bike. And if you don't know Erin, please, I encourage you to meet her. She's teaching them how to safely navigate through our streets. Our own police force volunteers during that event every year where she puts on the bike safety skills course and the bike rodeo. And this past year, she caught 35 bikes for the middle schoolers to use. What a great opportunity. But where does she practice? She doesn't have a safe parking lot. She doesn't have a skills course, and that's where Traverse comes in. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tyler to tell you the details about this project. And I am so grateful you get to hear my energy tonight, because this is a project that I really care about more than really most things in the world, because as we all know, biking is one of those lifetime skills that builds community. It improves our health. It gives us transportation skills, and it's an equitable, the right thing to do project. So there.
Thank you, Maeve. Council members, Mr. Mayor, thank you for your consideration. My name is Tyler Key, and I am the newly elected president of the board for Pend Oreille Peddlers. We're the local nonprofit cycling organization. As Maeve communicated, our membership has grown substantially, and we are on a roll as far as trail projects and community outreach. The bike rodeo, we support that, help kids do bike safety checks. And this project is a low-cost, high-value project that's going to be a quick timeline. We're going to have it professionally designed, professionally built, and hand the city a low-maintenance asset that will be heavily utilized.
Do you think you can do it for less than $1.7 million?
Yes. Yeah, no, our budget on this is gonna be about $70,000, and we have a handful of grants that we've identified that we're gonna be pursuing. And we're confident in securing the funding to build. The features that are shown in this diagram are illustrative of the types of features that will be in the project. They're from a company called Progressive Bike Ramps that specifically designs and builds commercial bike features for parks like these throughout the country. They will be assisting with installation or management of installation. They're great, durable, again, low maintenance equipment that the city will benefit from having. Project timeline, we're looking at completion of this in June of this year. So it's quick. This is not a complicated thing. We're really good at it, and we just need your support to use the land.
Great. Thank you, Tyler, and congratulations on your new position.
So thank you.
Any questions, council?
I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
So I read that outright bike. How much is that grant? It never specified in any of the, when I read it. Do you know how much it's for? Just out of curiosity.
For the 35 bikes,
Yeah, for the outright, the one that's in our packet, in our application, the
I think it's 30,000.
30?
Background 15, license plate grant 20, there's 20 from a couple others.
So there's
No,
4
but she's-
or 5.
Yeah, just the application that's in the,
That particular grant, it sounds like it's $20,000 ask.
right.
And they're cobblestoning together a couple different grants. And so the letter of support would be submitted to multiple grants.
Right. And so is that to get bikes? Because that's the one question I had too, is that, okay, so.
So the bikes
how
have
do-
already been procured. The grant was received by the middle school, and the bikes are already here.
Okay, and how do we get more bikes?
How do we get more bikes?
That's the only question. Well, because if you have 700 people in your organization and, you know, there's so many, and we were talking about the pump track even before I was seated on city council. And so, and I didn't even know what that was. So I had to have somebody explain that to me because my kids are old, in their 40s. And so yeah, it's not old perspective, right? And so I'm really glad that this is going to come to fruition, because at the time that we started talking about it, I thought, what a great idea. But as I read through the grant in the packet, all I could think of was, we need to get more bikes for kids. We need to get more bikes.
Yeah, so thank you for that. That's a very good insight and a very important concept. So every year, Ponderay Peddlers, through coaches like Sarah over there, we offer after-school clinics in the fall, the spring, and the summer. And when we do those clinics to serve maybe underprivileged youth, we work with the local school district to identify scholarship students, and then Ponderay Peddlers fundraises, and we procure bikes and then put them through that program. And after the successful completion of the program, they're able to keep that bike.
That's
So-
really great. Well, and it plays well into the, you know, the Long Bridge Swim does that. So kids in middle school can get swim lessons. I know we have SARS that, you know, we do fundraising to make sure every kid's can have ski. So I think it fits right in with how we do things in our community, is that middle school, get them on a bicycle. And, you know, I'm sure you partnered with local bike shops maybe to look into that, like Bonner County Bikes or something. And I'm sure they have to be a specific kind of bike. So. Okay, all right, thank you, that's all.
Yeah, and then, so this is kind of our phase one. And then the hard surface pump track that Maeve was referring to in the southwest corner of Travers, that is the next, like, we're hot to trot on that one. Because what the city is going to experience is an outpouring of cycling youth utilizing that asset. And then as the kids progress, as they kind of outgrow these, they're going to be able to move on to the next. And so you get this progression through the park of more advanced features and more advanced riders. And then it gets those kids, I mean, they can ride their bikes there after school, and they're going to be able to go out and rip the trails that we're building. And so it's very exciting. I mean, I travel a lot and you go to towns and for some reason it's British Columbia. Like you've got a town of 10,000 people in British Columbia and they have an amazing bike park in their downtown and it is constantly full of amazing kids on bikes. And so it's really exciting because again, this is extremely low budget, but the value that we're going to get out of this and the timeline, like I can't emphasize how cheap it is to go ride your bike. So
I think I also want to point out that it's not just for children, it's for everyone to build skills, and that's really important. I've had a lot of parents who tell me they want the skills to be able to ride with their kids. And then when we were doing the outreach last fall for the skate park, that's why we have shifted the skate park to all wheeled park, because now we know bikers and scooters are in the bike park or in the skate park. So you know, originally we looked at that site and what that would look like with an integration of a pump track, but the designers all recommended that the pump track is separate from the skate park. However, it's all wheeled and you will see skaters in this too. If the soil is compacted enough, they will be on it. I promise you. I've seen every type of wheel structure out there.
Couple questions. So I think I understand that what we see before us here is essentially a beginner's track, beginner skills.
yeah, all abilities.
All
So,
abilities.
yeah, I mean, you've got, you know, toddlers on striders up to, I mean, like my dad is an avid road cyclist and I can't get him into mountain biking because the trails are too intimidating. But taking my dad out here, my 70-year-old dad, and letting him try it. So definitely an all abilities, all ages course. But it's very low consequence features. So nobody's going to get hurt.
Okay. Are there more advanced features on this course?
Not on this parcel. And this is the idea where we build the stoke and then the city sees the value of this asset and we get the green light. You know, we have an amazing partnership with the city, the public-private partnership. And then we get that green light to start on the next phase and then the next phase. And so we get to the point where we have the progression where you can see youth in the community advancing their skills because we're giving them the resources to do it.
So presumably, so this one would be in all levels, and then perhaps the next one to the southwest corner would be more of an intermediate levels course.
Yeah, think of it as a blue.
Okay.
So a green, a blue, a black.
Yeah.
That kind of progression.
Okay. And then one more question I have around the environment there where this park would be located. I don't know if I know there's a sensitive area over there. Maybe it's still to the north there.
Correct. Yes. Yes. It's a wet area to the north. There's a drainage that flows in that area. In this plan, it doesn't show it very well, but there is full intent to revegetate, number one. Number two, not disturb existing trees. The trees that are there right now, I get fielded with a lot of phone calls of the trees are damaged. They've been hacked at. The kids have built structures off of them. So the trees are not currently being maintained like most of our forest here. And I am pursuing funding, substantial funding for a huge maintenance and planting pot of money grant for forestry improvements. So you'll hear about that in coming weeks, but the intent is that we would be revegetating and we would be utilizing the children to do that so that they would be learning about those skills as well.
Okay, thank you. Is that it? All right, any other questions?
Yeah, I guess I should just ask this now. It might seem like a silly comment here or question, but I think it'd be good to get it on record. So if this is the beginner's course, you said that even the balance bikes you could ride on this particular course. Does this preclude BMX bikes, or do you see the BMX bikes, mountain bikes, balance bikes? And then if that's the case, will the pump track preclude any bikes? Would it be strictly a mountain bike course?
No.
Or how would that look? I guess, is that, would we only be not dealing with the
Justin,
balance bikes?
When you say BMX bike, what are you envisioning?
An old school BMX bike with pegs on it that I grew up riding, that probably the original pump track was built upon through those early riders.
Were those like 14-inch wheels or something?
Mhm.
Yeah, the mags.
Mhm.
Mongoose. Yeah, so you aren't gonna see many of those except on eBay. So a lot of the bikes that you're gonna see will be mountain bikes, but you can also have a fully rigid geared bike. You can have balance bikes. So the design of this park does not preclude access because of a certain design of bike.
Thank you.
So Justin, that sounds like challenge accepted. We're getting on eBay.
We're getting some BMX. Yeah.
Wrong?
The movie Rad. Let's go.
I want you at the ribbon cutting.
Don't mind, I'd like to clarify the difference in this project compared to the pump track. The pump track bike skills facility has not been designed. There will be a public process. It will be a capital improvement project. This one it will most likely still have a partnership component to it. However, that is probably closer to $1 million project. That project already has a price tag of 1.3 million. We can take it or leave it, but that's what I was given by the designers. So I am working, as you know, with the International Mountain Bike Association on the watershed recreation plan. They are very aware of this project here, and they talk to us about specifically what you're saying of building the skills and then progressive development of bike facilities and looking system wide. I don't have the funding to bring them on to look at the whole community, but we may end up there, and it may not be them. It could be some other trail design company or trail planning company, but looking system wide and looking at all of our trails in the region is good for the whole community, and it has incredible economic and health benefits of connectivity, everything Rebecca's been talking about of all of that. So, but with that comes the skills development.
Mhm. Any further questions or comments?
great.
Councilor? Okay, thank you for that presentation. Both appreciate that.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this matter, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Paxton Key.
All right, Paxton, let's hear it.
Hi, my name is Paxton Key, and I live about 2 blocks away from Travelers Park. And I came here tonight to show how much I support this plan, because I think it would get a lot more kids on bikes, and I think it would get me biking a lot more, and I would love that. Currently, the only place I can mountain bike is Pine Street Woods or Greta Segway, which I need a car to get up there. So I think if we had this, I would be able to bike a lot more, because I could just bike right to there and just bike all day.
All right.
All day.
Thanks for those comments, Paxton. I appreciate it. Madam Clerk?
Alec Theti.
Good evening.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. My name is Alec Tate, Sandpoint city resident, mountain biker, volunteer trail builder with Ponderay Peddlers. There's not much I can really add to what Maeve and Tyler have said. I'm in favor. I think it's a bonus for families, community members, people looking to get into riding. It's because it would be easy to get to for access for children after school. All that stuff. The only thing I could add is I know somebody with a mid-80s Mongoose BMX bike, a friend of mine. So if you want to do that challenge, we can make it happen.
Thank you for those comments. Appreciate it. Madam Clerk?
Is it Martin Andrews?
Okay. Thank you.
Sarah Palmanter?
Hi, Council. I'm Sarah. Actually live in Ponderay, but I've lived in the Sandpoint area for the last 7 years. Before that, Salt Lake. So kind of seen this vision of like a skills park in Park City, where I also coached mountain biking and taught wilderness therapy for kids. So now in Sandpoint, I'm one of the coaches for the pop camps. So cool to see a lot of the kiddos out here for the support of this. And I guess I can't go anymore on kind of like what it's going to do for the biking community other than the mental health piece. Being a professional in mental health, I'm the venture coordinator at a boarding school in the area. Seeing these features change students' lives in the way of building self-efficacy, building self-worth, understanding what grit is, getting out of their comfort zone. So having this in an area like Paxton, he stole the show, to be able to come in and bike from school and then go able to do this with their friends, I can only see it being a huge benefit. That's all I got.
Sure, thank you. Appreciate that.
Mr. Mayor, Katie Cox, who is a Bonner County resident, did not wish to speak, but just wished to indicate her support.
Okay.
And that is all we have.
And there's no one online that would like to comment? Thank you, Madam Clerk. Appreciate that. All right. Yes. Yes, you may.
I feel like I have to have something positive to say it tonight, especially for biking, okay? So yes, this is definitely a good thing for the community. And I'd like to share just real quickly, a little quick history is that years and years ago, and by the way, we have a mongoose behind the back of our garage. So, you know, pull that out. The kids needed a place to go skateboarding and there was no place to go. They got in trouble going around and jumping around at the bank and such. And the skate park developed out of the pressure of a lot of people coming forward, parents and such. Where it was first proposed to us, however, was down there where this new pump track area is going to go, the third area or the second, the green, not the black zone, but the green zone. And, you know, to us, we said no. The parents said no, it needs to be out there in an area where we can keep an eye on the kids. The kids have visibility, our community, not for just the cops to watch over, but for us as a community, watch over our kids, not to be down in the ravine. And so that was put aside and we got the skate park, the beginning of it where it is now and moving on from there. The idea of the bike trail thing, track behind it just was developed by the kids of the area. And, you know, to make this something that's real, because these kids do need these kind of things to work out in. And to extend it, the only thing to me, as I look at it from a design point of view, is I like where, you know, it's already started there. So no idea, you know, let's not redo something, just improve it, but then also have something more continuing over. And do we really want to put that other thing down the hill? Now, yeah, you're going into a more advanced place, so you want it up and down. But again, there seems to be, like, as I look at the full design, and this is all the way out to stage 3 and 4 and wherever you go, and those never get funded anyway, is like that some continuity. And these are the kind of things we really, really need. And as we develop these skills and we get these bikes for kids and we all work on education, on the rules of the roads, et cetera. What's really needed too is to be able to get them from their homes,
Rebecca,
no
you have
matter
30
where they live,
seconds.
to these parks. And so therefore we need to work on that too. But good job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hall. Appreciate those comments.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
we did have someone else who'd signed up, Elizabeth Oakton.
okay.
Our family is relatively new to the area within the last couple months. We spent the last year and a half traveling around the country. And one of the reasons we loved Sandpoint is for the biking and the community that's here around that. We've seen really well executed bike parks from Michigan down to Arkansas to Maine. And what I've loved about it is it brings people of all different skill levels together and family, from grandparents who may not be riding their bikes on the track, but they bring their kids and they have a safe place to watch them on their strider bikes or their mountain bikes. We've seen kids after school having a safe place to go, because usually there's some other adults around too, like my husband and I, who are not great riders, and we really benefit from these parks as well. it's a chance for families to bond, and our kids laugh when we fail at a lot of these different features, and they go over them with a breeze. And I also like that it develops it in a, I guess, somewhat safer environment than necessarily sending them out on the trail systems. You can kind of watch them and they have a bigger area, clearer area to fall and maybe push themselves and try a different feature that I wouldn't love for them to go launching through the woods with trees on both sides of them. So from a parent perspective and skills development, I really, I like that. So I love when we saw this, our kids are super pumped about it. They've got feedback because they were looking at the pictures online, and they've sat here through their first city hall meeting specifically because they wanted to hear about this. So I'm representing them, and we really would love to see this go forward in all of its development. So thank you very much.
Thank you for those comments. And thanks, kids, for coming and sticking it out.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that it, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution authorizing a letter of support for Mountain Bike Skills Park grant applications. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? This will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor Groot,
Yes.
Counselor McAllister,
Yes.
Counselor Sprow.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. And next item on the agenda.
Mayor,
Yes.
can I call for a 5-minute break?
Oh, yeah, sure. Let's do a 5-minute break. Real quick, 5 minutes, everybody. Thank you.
Death left. Your liquid.
Okay, maybe we can get the door back there.
Close
Thank
the
you,
door.
Chief.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Chief.
that.
Chief.
It's a joint fire effort there, joint fire effort. Thank you. Appreciate that. Have a good evening, folks. Thanks for coming. Okay. So the next item on the agenda is a presentation or update on the Housing Authority, which we've brought up briefly a couple of times in the past, and I wanted to bring the council up to date on where we're at. So, you know, the history of the Housing Authority goes back some time. You know, there was certainly a hot topic of conversation at the last election. But the issue of housing, we know, has been an issue in this community, housing affordability, for a long time, and we've sought for a long time to do something about it. We did a study in 2019, a housing study commissioned by the city of Sandpoint here. It was an internal study that really helped kind of set the table and give us a better understanding of our own the dynamics of housing in our own community. And then that set the table for the mayor's task force on housing that was last year, 2021, I should say. And that really helped us, I think, get a little more insight and perspective, particularly from the development community and particularly from the employers in our region. And one thing that has been consistently clear and increasingly clear as time goes on is that to achieve housing affordability for the average and certainly the lower income earners in our community, there has to be some sort of public subsidy or mechanism beyond simple market forces. And that's just because the cost of housing, the cost of labor, the cost of materials, the cost of land here in Sandpoint in particular, all of those things combined to create a housing cost that you simply can't build a house cheap enough so that a medium income earner in Sandpoint could afford to live there, whether it's a rent or buy. So certainly, and as you all are very familiar with the Leland study that came out or that we've reviewed in depth a couple of times, most recently a couple of months ago. It was interesting that the first recommended action item in the Leland report was creation of a multi-jurisdictional housing authority agency. Recognizing multi-jurisdictional because recognizing that this is not just a Sandpoint problem, this is a regional problem. And for that matter, I think we all can agree this is really a national problem and probably even beyond that. But certainly we experience the pressures of housing and housing costs here as much as anywhere. So the other thing, so here we are today. I'll remind the council that we received a grant for the purposes of understanding for the purposes of trying to create a plan and implement some changes to housing here in our community from Blue Cross Foundation in 2021. And we also received a grant from the Community Development Block Grant from the state of Idaho for the same purpose. So I should say we've actually repurposed those grants towards this effort. So what we've done at this point is we've engaged Elam and Burke. Is that right? Yeah, Elam and Burke. It's an attorney firm down in Boise. We have an ongoing relationship with that firm. Ryan Armbruster has been he's one of the principals and has been an advisor for us on a number of issues. And we've engaged them to help us first do an assessment of what the landscape it looks like in Idaho in terms of regulatory landscape, authority granted under the Idaho State Code. So they're going to do that analysis for us. Just for the council's perspective, there are 5 other housing authorities in the state of Idaho. They look and operate in a variety of different ways. They're all a little bit different. Some of them are multi-jurisdictional. A couple of them are single jurisdiction. So we're going to take a look at all of those different do a comparative analysis of those different authorities and do an assessment of our community here. And they're going to recommend a path forward for a housing authority that's suitable for our community and our needs. And if Jennifer wants to pull up there, you got it up there already. Thank you. You're ahead of me. Hang on. Thanks for your patience. Let's see. So what they will be doing, Elam and Burke, they will assist us first. Phase 1 will be, as I said, review the statutory process and consider the different types and mix of housing that the authority may support, including a review of objectives of other housing authorities throughout the state of Idaho. And then after review, they will draft the necessary, phase 2 will be drafting the necessary documents to establish the authority and participate in necessary meetings to adopt the formation documents and provide initial guidance for the execution of the housing authority's charge. And they will also help us consider best how to integrate those potential regional partners. So I have a lot of confidence in this group, and I have a lot of confidence that this is the right path for us forward, not just because this has been called for through multiple public processes, including the Leland report, but I just, also through my experience with the mayor's housing task force and other venues in the city, I just know that this is really going to get us where we want to be. The housing authority can give us a lot of tools that we don't currently have the ability to leverage here at the city. So, for example, housing authority can buy, purchase, convey land, can take out loans. It has taxing authority. I don't anticipate that we'll go that direction with this, but there's a lot of leverage that the housing authority can bring to bear beyond what the city can exercise. So with that, I just there's no action here tonight. I just wanted to provide you with kind of an update, and I will certainly keep you abreast as this process develops. And I'm hopeful that in a short time period, maybe by summer, we'll have some documents for you to review that would establish a housing authority in our community. Any questions?
Now, I just would like to say thank you because I think it's absolutely necessary that we do this. I get the missing middle of housing. I get that. We need professionals to have houses, et cetera. But again, everybody knows, I made that clear today with a presentation, is that my heart goes out to the low wage earners. Where do they live? Where, and is anybody, and I know it's impossible for developers because the costs are too much. And so we absolutely need this, or we're gonna lose, the Leland report, what they said, people making $53,000 a year are out migrating. And so we need to figure that out. And I think that falls at our responsibility. So I appreciate this.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I think I'd like to echo those comments as well, too. I don't think we're going to get to a place of affordable housing without this particular strategy of moving forward with a housing authority. So kudos to you for taking it on, and I would certainly be willing to put my time and efforts as a counselor towards this housing authority in any way that you would see fit.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay. Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this matter? Anyone online, Madam Clerk?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right, moving on. The last item on the agenda this evening is consideration of a couple of amendments to the firefighters collective bargaining agreement, which was postponed from the last meeting until this evening. And I'll now yield the floor to Fire Chief Gavin Gilcrease. Thanks, Gavin.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Thanks for having me and getting this moved to this meeting instead of last one. A little conflict, but we got through it. So tonight, before you use a resolution, just to take care of Article 14 of the collective bargaining agreement between the JPA and the members of the JPA and the IAFF Local 2319. What we're doing with this Article 14 it contains the staffing levels for all of our stations at the time in 2021 when this was adopted and signed and agreed upon. The West Side Fire District would not staff their station 24/7, 365. If someone was off, they would brown it out. And just this last year, we made strides moving the department forward to ensure that we are able to staff that station 24/7, 365. It was budgeted for in this budget and should be in the budget for the remainder of the time of the contract for sure. So what we wanted to do is change the minimum number of staffing, which is currently at 5, change it to a minimum of 6 on duty at all times throughout the department. And we also want to add the reference to West Side Station 5 within that article. It wasn't even referenced at the time when it was done. So it's kind of like we've moved that direction, but we need to do a little housekeeping on that. So just to keep us all straight.
All right, any questions, council? All right, well, that was easy. Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this matter, Madam Clerk?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution for the memorandum of understanding affecting amendments to Article 14 of the 2021 to 2024 collective bargaining agreement. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? This will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor Groot,
Yes.
Counselor McAllister,
Yes.
Counselor Welker.
Yes.
Counselor Sprow.
Yes.
Motion passes and this meeting is adjourned.